Today we're going to talk about noun clauses, how they're formed, and why they're used. Remember, being able to create grammatical structures is half the battle. It's really important that we know how and when they're used. So, just like an adverb clause, noun clauses require an independent clause plus a dependent clause. And in that dependent clause, we have a subordinator, a subject, and a verb. For example, a lot of people know that smoking is unhealthy. Here's my noun clause, that smoking is unhealthy. And in my independent clause, here's my subject and my verb. So let's talk a little bit about patterns of noun clauses. And we're going to start off with reported speech, or what we call direct references. In essays, research papers, etc., you'll need to refer to past research, use other people's ideas to support your claims. And so what I mean by a direct reference is you use the author or the person who stated the phrase that you're paraphrasing directly. They're actively in the sentence. For example, my doctor claims that flu shots are necessary. My doctor claims is my subject and verb in my independent sentence, and then the rest here is my noun clause. And here, my doctor is the active agent of my sentence, whereas in an indirect reference, I wouldn't be using him actively. I would be using what he says and then putting his name in parentheses at the end. Another example, a new study reports that. A new study reports is my subject and verb. The rest here is my noun clause to say what they reported. So it's important to note that noun clauses answer what? What did he claim? That flu shots are necessary. What did the study report? That the company's profits have increased since last year. So it's answering the what of the verb. And in this last example here, I have that this is an example of an indirect reference, because in this example, me, Hammond, I'm not directly or actively stating the sentence here. So this is the difference between a noun clause, which is a direct reference or reported speech, and paraphrasing indirectly, where I take the person who is saying the phrase out of the sentence and it's more passive in terms of they're not actively stating the phrase. Okay, another pattern that we have is when we want to express opinions and feelings, we use noun clauses. For example, the professor was concerned. What was he concerned? That the test was too easy. So here's my subject and my verb in my independent clause, and here's my noun clause. But we can also have these come after adjectives. So for example, the hostess was happy. What was she happy about? That her guests enjoyed the food. So here I have my subject and verb, my adjective is happy, and then I have my noun clause to describe what she was happy about. Another example that is pretty common in research papers is using it is phrases plus an adjective. So it is unfortunate, it is my subject, is my verb, unfortunate is my adjective. What is it unfortunate? That you can't join us. All right, let's talk about reporting verbs. So in order to use other people's ideas, you really need to choose the correct verb that aligns with an author's position. Ask yourself, what is the author doing in the text? You need to put yourself in his or her shoes, okay? Because when you are reporting, you need to illustrate the purpose of that passage as it was represented in the original text. And I want you to steer clear from verbs like say and tell, because as writers, we do so much more than just say or tell people things, okay? We argue, we contest, we report, we explain, we illustrate, we claim, okay? This book, They Say, I Say, is a really great reference because it provides you with a lot of templates for different situations that require reporting using noun clauses. So, I would say pick up a copy, borrow a copy from the library. This is really great to give you ideas of what kinds of reporting verbs that you would be able to use for your, whatever purpose that you're looking to use it for. All right, so apart from reported speech, we have indirect questions. We use noun clauses for reporting on questions as well, especially in research papers, which we'll get to in a moment. But to do so, again, you need that independent clause and noun clause. But in the noun clause here, we're going to use a WH structure that includes all of your question words: who, what, where, when, why, and how, plus a subject plus a verb. Also includes whether and if when we are dealing with yes or no questions. For example, my first example is where I have a WH question. I wanted to know where the sound came from. Here's my subject and verb in my independent clause, and then here is my noun clause. All right, where is my WH structure? But I can also do yes or no questions. Like in this example, the teachers asked the students whether or if they had done their homework. If I take this out and put it back into direct speech, it would become, did you do your homework? Okay, that's a yes or no question. When we take that and we make it indirect, it becomes whether or if, plus your subject, plus the verb. Okay, so pay attention to whether or not you're dealing with a WH question or a yes or no question. All right, so the question is, where and when do we use indirect questions and noun clauses? Well, in research and academic texts, we report on purpose and we describe ideas. For example, in the first one, it talks about this research paper aims to determine whether students' learning outcomes are positively influenced by the use of video lectures. So this is telling us the purpose of this research paper. What is the question that the author had but when they were conducting the research? And that requires a noun clause, an indirect question. So we can say that in this example, the researcher was asking his or herself, I wonder, student learning outcomes positively influenced by the use of video lectures? Right, that's a yes or no question. Yes, or they do, or no, they don't. In the second example, this is describing ideas. This comes from an article called Why Creativity Now. It's an interview with Sir Ken Robinson, and he's talking about the misconceptions that people have about creativity in education. So he's listing off all the misconceptions, and in this example, the third misconception is that creativity is about special activities. So here he's describing an idea and using a noun clause in order to do that. And another thing that we use noun clauses for is to report on what you've learned or what you've heard. So for example, my professor explained. What did my professor explain? How to properly write a cohesive paragraph. All right, but okay, we need to be careful with our tenses though. Just like with everything, little things change here. For example, in this example, I'm in the present tense. Is it possible to become successful? But when I change it to reported speech, it changes. Now I say the student wondered if it was possible to become successful. All right, so the tenses change because when it was said in the past, it was the present moment. But when I'm reporting on it in my present, which makes that reference in the past. So I have to change the tense. However, because there's exceptions to everything in English, if Muhammad says, I really like this movie, and I report on it, I would say, Muhammad said he really likes this movie. Why didn't I change my tenses there? Well, it's because with routines and things that are always true, we actually will keep that the same, because he always will like that movie. He didn't like it in the past and it's over, he still likes it today. So we have to be careful with those exceptions. Ask yourself, is it still true? Is it routine? Then keep it the same. But for all the other times when it will change, this is a chart that will help you determine what that changes to, right? So on the left-hand column, you have direct speech, what they said. On the right-hand column is what you would change the tense to as you report it in a direct reference. All right, now you try. Go ahead and change the following sentences into noun clauses, and we'll discuss them in class. Thank you. Have a great day, and don't forget to subscribe below. Comment if you would like to see anything or have any questions or suggestions.